What is up, you guys? I am currently live on TikTok. If you guys are seeing this on YouTube, you guys are catching the live replay. My TikTok handle is bjosic, so B-J-O-S-I-C. Let's see what questions that people have for us today. If you guys want your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, you guys can find all the information on my website in the description box below. So for psychic gifts and abilities, there's a lot. Here's the thing. I honestly feel like everyone is psychic and intuitive in their own way if they were to exercise it. But there are predispositions in a natal chart, right? Just like anything, you're gonna have a genetic predisposition to be an athlete, these types of things. So for psychic placements, there's a lot. I actually have a video on my TikTok. It's very old now, but I kind of went over all of the placements. Now it's gonna be things like the water placements, water houses. That's all gonna give you psychic gifts and abilities. You're gonna look at maybe moon in the first house, maybe moon in Cancer, moon in any of the water signs, to be honest. Moon in Scorpio is gonna give you mediumship abilities. A-house placements are going to give you mediumship abilities. What else is there? Neptune. You want to see what's going on with Neptune. If you have Neptune maybe in the 8th house, that's going to be mediumship abilities as well. Having Neptune maybe in the 3rd house, you could be clairaudient as well, where you hear. So it could be this. So it's a variety of things, but mainly if you are a water person, water house person, maybe if you have a lot of 12th house, 8th house placements, you're probably going to be very, very psychic or intuitive. Cancer is also psychic and intuitive. I just feel like Cancer kind of gets sucked into the abandonment wound a lot of the time. So let's see what else you guys saying in here. Emma says anything about 3rd house synastry, sun in the 3rd house of a person. Communication is going to be important in this relationship. So what tends to happen is, like, for example, in like a sun in the 3rd house synastry, it's like communication is important, but you might not get that, right? Or you might get the exact opposite of that. You know what I mean? Because it's just kind of like the irony of this world. So communication is going to be important, just knowing this. Okay, sun in the 3rd house. That's kind of like the vibe. Communication. Hey, May Eve, how are you doing? Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You wanted to ask me how to work with Rahu in Virgo in the 3rd house. That's your north node in Virgo and it's in the 3rd house. So your south node would be in Pisces and it would be in the 9th house, right? South node in Pisces in the 9th house. So to understand where you're going, you want to see where you've come from, right? So South Node in Pisces in the 9th house, that could have been a very spiritual lifetime for you. And something that I've been thinking about with South Node placements is like, sometimes it's like mastered knowledge, right? So probably in that lifetime, maybe you were very metaphysical and maybe you had a lot of like new philosophies that you developed, but maybe you weren't able to express it, right? Because it's kind of like the way that I see it, it's just my own opinion, okay? So it's like, if you don't get to complete something in a past life and you leave that lifetime with that desire line, you reincarnate again, right? So in that lifetime, probably you had some sort of desire to maybe be a spiritual teacher and speak about spirituality. So you already have all of this knowledge because of the South Node, right? So in this lifetime, it's in Virgo and it's in the 3rd house. So now it's about grounding this, right? So your life purpose deals with healing, yes, you know, being of service in one way, shape, or form, but it's the 3rd house. So it's more like streamlined, if that makes sense. You know, it's probably going to be more day-to-day, maybe a little bit more watered down for the everyday person to understand. Maybe in that past life, you were ahead of your time. Maybe people didn't understand what you were talking about or your teachings and these types of things. So you come through in this lifetime, you're mastering the written or the spoken word. Okay, you're mastering how to speak, how to communicate. Social media could be very helpful for you. And it's all about healing, okay, and being of service in one way, shape, or form. But keep in mind, you've already mastered in that past life something to do with spirituality, spiritual knowledge. Because the thing is, to master the physical plane, you have to have mastered the spiritual plane. Let's see what else you guys think in here. Yay, I'm glad that resonates. Sag and Jupiter in the 1st house. So for you, you can make abundance through the self, through money, through maybe dancing, through maybe like acting, moving around, teaching. That's Jupiter in the 1st house. Also, having Jupiter in the 1st house is going to give you the undertone of having a Sag rising. So what does this mean? You're probably going to be very adventurous, very much like athletic even, okay, with Sag rising undertone energy. You probably could want to go on adventures and travel and meet new people, and you might be impulsive. That's the thing. So Jupiter's expanding this area for you. It's expanding the area of the self. Okay, so that's Jupiter in the 1st house. So all 1st house like things, management roles, entrepreneurial roles, these types of things, you can make money off of them, basically. And then Sag being in there, it's going to be anything to do with philosophies, the higher mind, higher learning. So you could be the type of person who's interested in like getting maybe a personal training certification, and then maybe you want to be a dance instructor, and then maybe you want to be a yoga instructor, like these types of things. That's very much Sag in that 1st house. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. So Katrina says, Chiron conjunct midheaven in Capricorn. So for you, your public life, your public image, your career, okay, whatever you are displaying to the world, you are healing through it at the same time, okay? So your Chiron is in the 10th house, it's in Capricorn. So what does this mean, okay? So you're healing anytime you get money, anytime you get wealth, anytime you climb, you know, the higher echelons of the society, these types of things. For you, it's going to be a very, very healing experience, okay? So anytime you are getting the gains and you're kind of elevating the social status, it's very, very healing for you. Let's see what else you guys say in here. King Piscean says, what do you think would be the best match for a Pisces sun, Capricorn moon, and an Aries rising? Oh, you're an Aries rising. That's very nice. Let me think. Actually, you might attract a lot of Libra people into your life because of the Aries rising. Capricorn moon is very, very grounded. You might attract even Cancerian people into your life as well with the Capricorn moon being in there. I don't know. That's a very nice balance. You've got fire, you've got water, you've got earth. Maybe somebody who also has those placements happening. We have to look at the overall synastry. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts, everything under the sun. Chiron, Scorpio. So Chiron in your natal chart, you guys, is the area that you're healing through in this lifetime. So you have it in the 8th house, which is the Scorpio house. Okay, so it's double of that Scorpionic energy. So for you, it's going to be very healing anytime you're engaging in the Scorpio world. Okay, what is this? Sex, death, rebirth, joint finances, taxes, and the occult. Okay. So anytime you're engaging in this world, maybe when you're making money, or maybe when you are, let's say you get like a business loan, that's a very healing experience for you. Maybe when you're engaging in astrology, when you're engaging in the occult, when you're engaging in psychology, therapy, all these types of things, and sexuality is going to be very healing for you. So you're healing through your sexuality in this lifetime, but also sexuality is going to be very healing for you as well. Diva Queen says, when does Rahu settle down, return? You feel like it's so difficult to ground yourself. What did you say you had it in? You had it in Virgo and in the 3rd house. I'm actually not sure. May Eve says, is an Aquarius moon compatible with a healed Pisces moon? I'm going to say depends on the rest of the natal chart, because it's like, here's the thing. You're welcome. Here's the thing. Aquarius can be very detached, and then Pisces can be very clingy. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you're saying the Pisces moon is healed. So if the Pisces moon is more healed and they're like aware that the Aquarius moon person needs the space and they need to kind of be able to go venture off on their own and still have their own identity, then it's going to work. But if Pisces moon is like merging into the Aquarius moon person, the Aquarius moon person is going to run. That's the thing. Aquarius moon needs to be detached, and I find them to be very healthy. So like Aquarius moon types of people, like they can literally have friendships where they see the friend like once a year. They can even have a relationship where they see that person once a year. Like, obviously it depends on the rest of the natal chart, but that's the overall idea, okay? So that's the overall idea with the Aquarius moon. Like, it's very much like detached in that sense where it's like, I'll see you when I see you. I need to go about, you know, doing my business. You can do your business. Pisces moon merges, right? So what might happen is like in this dynamic, if the Pisces moon is unhealed, it's like they might merge into the other person and not have their own sense of self, and that might suffocate the Aquarius moon person. So it kind of depends on the rest of the natal chart and to see what's going on. Hey, John Snyder, how is it going? Oh my gosh, you're from Nova Scotia. What is going on? You're an Aquarius. Yeah, it's true. Like Aquarius values their freedom. It's interesting because it's like, you know, when people talk about Aquarius energy, they talk about it like it's like detached and cold and like robotic. Like, okay, maybe it could go in that direction if it goes in the extreme unhealed version. But for them, it's like it's this healthy, you know, boundary is really what it is. It's like, you do you, I'll do me. Like we can see each other when we see each other, you know? And that's why sometimes when people talk about relationships when it comes to Aquarius, you know, sometimes people are going to say things like, oh, they're freaky and they're like super unconventional in this way. And it's like, okay, maybe some of them could be, but more so than anything, I see them as futuristic. That's where the collective is going. You know, I feel like we're too enmeshed as a collective. If you ask me, like there's too much codependency going on, too much like merging with everybody, and you know, everyone's too involved with each other. It's like it feels more healthy, you know, and it's kind of like you're doing you, I'm doing me, and we'll come together. You know, it doesn't mean that the Aquarius person or Aquarius moon or wherever you have the Aquarius placements in your natal chart, it doesn't mean that this person isn't interested in you. It just means that they want their space. They want their space and they want their freedom. So with them, it's like they'll have friends, right, that they've maybe been friends with for like 20, 30 years. But again, they see them maybe once a year, once every 2 years, and the friendship is still there. They kind of like pick up where they left off, because it's like, if you guys look at all the signs from Scorpio onwards, these are the spiritual signs, right? So with like the spiritual signs, they're operating more so on like the astral planes, right? And in the astral planes, there is no time and space, right? It's only in the physical reality we're restricted by this. So it's like, for these people, it's like they connect, right, in the astral realm. So that makes sense. Let's see. Hey, Astrofusion, how's it going? Yay, John, I'm so glad that that resonates. I'm just going back up. Okay, Emma says you have Venus, Mars, Lilith, and Vertex all in the 8th house, and it is in Cancer. So, okay, Cancer energy in a natal chart is the most abandoned energy. Okay, so for you, a lot of things to work through in this lifetime are going to be the mother wound and codependency. And then the mother wound and codependency is interconnected. Okay, so keep that in mind. I find that codependency stems from the mother wound. Okay, and I've been thinking about making a video about this because it's like when we look at people who are like seeking for this like love and this like one true like, you know, love, it comes from a mother wound from not having had that time with the mother when you were growing up. This is just my own perspective. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. That's just what I've observed. Okay. So Cancerian people, especially, you don't have it in the moon, but overall Cancerian people, like what happens with them is like they have this mother wound / feminine energy wound / like not getting enough like emotional space for them, right? For them to have been emotional, you know, held, right? Emotional space held for them. So that's the thing. So when you have Venus in Cancer, sometimes the mother can interfere with your love life, for example. It could be directly, yes, you could have like an overly intense attachment to the mother. That's another thing that can happen for Cancerian people. It's like they have this deep love for the mother regardless, whether she was in the life or not in the life, right? Sometimes what might happen is like when you're growing up, maybe you didn't get that maternal love. And then when you grow up, it's like maybe the mother is not available. And then you like want to hold on, right, for like dear life instead of kind of venturing off and doing your own thing. So it could be like this, but it could also be energetically, right? It could be energetically like an unhealed wound that is stemming from the mother or the feminine line. Okay, so it could be through the feminine line. So a lot of the time, Cancerian people are breaking through codependency, okay? Because what happens with them is like they're very nurturing, they're very caring, they're very like attentive to like the people around them, but it's like they're also desperately seeking for that to, you know, be happening to them, right? For them to be treated in that way as well. So it's interesting, we have to see, it's like when we're treating people a certain way, it's because we want to be treated that way, right? So with like Cancerian people, there tends to be this like excess of like nurturing and like these types of things. So that's that. And then for Mars and Cancer, I have a whole video on Mars and Cancer because it's like Mars is your masculine energy within. Okay, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And then it's like Mars wants to be masculine, but Cancer is feminine, right? So it's like Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and then when it's in Cancer, it's not necessarily the best placement because it's just a struggle. It can be overly emotional, it can be explosive, there can be a lot of tears when you're like arguing and these types of things. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. I talk about Mars and Cancer in depth on there, but also having Lilith in all of this, it's like your dark side is the shadow of Cancer, right? So sometimes what can happen with Cancer and having Lilith in Cancer is like you might, you know, kind of, again, give a lot of your love to people, right? But it's like, again, you might be using that for manipulation or you might withhold it when you're not getting what you want. You could be emotionally manipulative. I'm not saying this is you. That's just something that can happen for Lilith in Cancer. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. 12th house Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. King Piscean, you probably want to be in the music industry with that combination of things. You're going to be talented either musically or writing or anything to do with your imagination and your ideas. So like romance novels, like these types of things, something that's longer form, poetry even, because a lot of the time like singing, songwriting is poetry. So you're going to be gifted in that way, especially when you have Mercury in the 12th house. You can speak in riddles, right? That's Mercury in the 12th house. A lot of the time, 12th house people, last lifetime, clearing out a lot of karma, right? That is very much 12th house energy. I have so many videos on my YouTube channel about 12th house people, okay? So if you guys are a 12th house person and you're interested, check out my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks. Let's see. You said that was very accurate for you. And yes, this is me. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that resonated. What else are you guys saying in here? May Eve also agrees. Thank you. I'm glad that it resonates with all of you guys. Astrofusion says, if you have a very heavy 10th house and an empty 4th house thoughts. So this is the way that I see the 10th house, 4th house axis, okay? So that's your IC and your midheaven. So 10th house, heavy 10th house, you're going to be working with the public in one way, shape, or form. Now it depends. It's up to you how far you want to take it because the energy is working in your favor. You could go to the international level. You could, right? Or what I've noticed with 10th house, sometimes these people might become very well known in their niche, right? So with your name being Astrofusion, maybe you're interested in astrology, I'm just guessing. So you can maybe become well known in the astrology niche, for example, with having a heavy 10th house, regardless you're working with the public. Now, what I have to say for 10th house people is if things aren't going in the direction that you want them to go in terms of your career, your public image, and your public life, you have to look at the 4th house and you have to look at the IC to see what took place, okay, within the home that might be holding you back. So it could be belief systems, it could be the relationship with the mother, because it is the 4th house. If it's not the mother, dominant feminine role in your life, it could be anything to do with belief systems. Something could be holding you back from embarking into that 10th house, right, journey. Now, another thing with astrology is everything is a progression throughout the chart, right? So you can't get to the 10th house before the previous houses. So it's like, yes, you want to look at the 4th house, but that's the oppositional energy. But you also want to look at the 9th house, because the 9th house people are the people that you're learning from, okay? So whoever is in your 9th house, whatever sign you have in there, you're learning from those types of people to activate the 10th house midheaven, which is your career and your public life and your public image. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel as well. I think it's called like how to activate your career and your midheaven. It's in my miscellaneous playlist, and my YouTube channel is called Barbara Talks. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You want to know Saturn return and Pisces in the 8th house. So you're currently going through a Saturn return. Okay. So Saturn return and Pisces in the 8th house, a few things can happen here, okay? So I'm just gonna give all of the things that could potentially happen, so you can go ahead and say, I don't claim that energy, okay? So I'm just throwing that out there. But Saturn in the 8th house, let's say you were married, okay, before your Saturn return, you could potentially go through a divorce when Saturn goes through your 8th house. So this is either when you have a Saturn return, or if you have a Saturn 8th house transit, you could potentially go through a divorce. You could go through a separation of assets. You could also get an inheritance during this time, okay? There could be things coming up surrounding your sexuality that need to be cleared, because Saturn is karma, okay? So when it's going through your 8th house, that means you originally have Saturn in the 8th house in your original natal chart. So already you incarnated into this lifetime with karma to clear surrounding your sexuality, okay? Your vulnerability, your emotions, okay? Anything to do with merging of energies. That's what the 8th house is all about. So you might, let's say, struggle to be vulnerable or express your emotions. Boom, Saturn return comes through and it's saying, okay, now it's time for you to be vulnerable. Because like, let's say, you know, you want to pursue something and something might not be working out for you. Let's say you want to be an artist, right? To be an artist, you have to be in tune with your emotions, and you have to be okay with being vulnerable. Actually, that's every part of life, right? When we're looking at healing, relationships, all these types of things. So if you struggle with vulnerability, that is probably going to be a theme for you during this Saturn return, okay? So that's Saturn return going through the 8th house, okay? Basically, these themes, okay? And overall, right, this is what you're mastering throughout your life. I find that Saturn, like as we age, loses power just because our own ego kind of subsides a little bit, and we kind of start to go more with the flow as time goes on. But that's the thing, okay? So same thing, there could be themes surrounding sexuality coming up, these types of things during your Saturn return, okay? Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Have I ever done my human design chart? You're a manifestor generator. Oh, that's awesome. I have heard about that. I haven't actually ever done mine. I probably should though. I am curious to know what I am. Let's see. Thoughts on Western versus Vedic astrology. Here's my thing, okay? I think that every system has truth in it, okay? Just like I think that everything that we learn about in esoterica has truth in it, okay? In theology and mysticism. It's just all about seeing what resonates most with you and what resonates most with your natal chart. I find that Vedic astrology is very focused on marriage and finding your partner. So if that's something that you're interested in learning about, I think they're great for that. If you're interested in doing predictive astrology, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of the time when we look at Western and Vedic, it's like the signs tend to be shifted up one, right? So right now in Western astrology, Pluto is in Capricorn, right? In Vedic astrology, it's shifted up one. Pluto is in Sagittarius, I believe. So it's like if you're doing divination, you're probably going to get similar answers, right? Because it's like when you're looking at divination and you want to make predictions for the future, you're going to kind of look to see in the past and see like, okay, what was happening last time Pluto was in Capricorn? Kind of get your statistics from that if you're doing it in the Western system, and then draw your conclusions for this time, right? If you're doing it in the Vedic system, well, in that situation, it would have been Pluto and Sag. So in that way, like when I think about it that way, I'm like, you're still probably going to derive a very similar answer, okay? What's interesting is I do Western Placidus astrology. I've gotten my natal chart read in even Vedic astrology, and both have been accurate for me. Personally though, I resonate more with my Western chart. So it's like if you're going to look at like maybe doing readings for people and these types of things, you kind of have to go based off of what resonates with you personally more. But again, I think both have truth. I like the complexity of Vedic astrology. They have a lot of cool things. Like they have like the hasta and like, you know, all those things. So there's a lot more detail in the Vedic system as well. Let's see. You said, you asked the difference between Western and Vedic because whole sign system changes. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing what's interesting with Vedic and with Vedic and Western, because it's like in Vedic they also have the whole sign system. Because the whole time when I originally was learning astrology, I was like, Vedic doesn't resonate with me because the houses resonated more in Western. But then recently I discovered that the houses, it's, if you do it in the Placidus system in Vedic, like I guess they also have Placidus, I'm not sure, like I'm not well versed, but that's just from what I noticed. If you look at it in that way, then the houses were the same. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I don't know. You'd have to ask a Vedic practitioner to see if they do Placidus and whole signs, because recently I discovered, like just from putting in my chart online, that they also have that like option. So I'm not sure. Let's see. Thank you for the likes, shares, and subscribes and the follows. Why is your Scorpio moon X controlling? Yeah, Scorpio moon is intense, you guys, okay? Especially if, okay, can you let me know if your Scorpio moon X was a cis het man? Because it's like the feminine energy tends to be a little bit more challenging for people who are more in the masculine energy. Like I'll say that much, especially if they're unaware. So Scorpio moon overall is like hardcore, okay? So it's like when Scorpio moon is not in touch with the emotions and really going with the feeling aspect of things, they can go into like the deep shadow of Scorpio, which is being controlling and possessive and jealous and all these types of things. So yeah, Scorpio moon can be hardcore intense, and Scorpio can just like play mind games and these types of things. I'm curious to know, Marley, if you maybe have a Scorpio rising or if you have like Scorpio placements in your natal chart. Let's see. May Eve says, what do you think about Neptune and Uranus in the 6th house? Yes. You said Scorpio moon and was a late Libra Mars. Oh, that's intense. So he's got a lot of feminine energy in his natal chart because Libra Mars is also pretty feminine. May Eve says, what do you think about Neptune and Uranus in the 6th house? Okay. So this is how you guys can look at Neptune and Uranus. Uranus is sudden unexpected change, and Uranus is the way we think and the way that we express our individuality and maybe our ideas, right? So it could also be the area where you are unconventional. So when you have Uranus in the 6th house, you perceive health, healing, and being of service in a unique way, right? And you have Neptune in there. So Neptune, you guys can look at Neptune as like how we might escape through the crown, right? So it's like, it could be channeled information, it could be psychic information, it could be things that you dream about and daydream about. That's Neptune. But it could also be the area that you don't see clearly. Because what happens with Neptune and Pisces and 12th house energy is like these people, when they're unaware that they're psychic and they're always escaping through the crown and they're always thinking, and like in the crown chakra, they kind of develop this like fog energy. So that's kind of where the not seeing clearly energy comes from, right? So wherever you have Neptune, you might not see that area clearly because you might think about it a lot, okay? So Neptune in the 6th house is like, you know, you kind of escape through thinking about health and healing and being of service. But at the same time, like with that conjunction, you might be able to, let's say, like channel through a healing modality, right? If you were to figure out how to ground it. That's the thing with Neptune energy in a natal chart, you all. It's like you have to figure out how to ground the Neptunian energy. So coming out of the crown and the overthinking, and how can you ground it in this physical plane and in this physical reality? That's the trick, I would say, with Neptune. Otherwise, you're just up here and you're dreaming and you're thinking and you're escaping. So that's the struggle. Let's see, what are you guys saying in here? You said you have no Scorpio, but you're a Taurus moon. Also, your moons were opposing. That must have been intense. And then you said you're a Pisces rising. Yeah, honestly, it's just like, it's the struggle with the Scorpionic energy. When it's underdeveloped and it's unhealed, it can really, really go into like extreme paranoia. Like that's the thing. It can really go into extreme paranoia. It's just like, what's unfortunate is like Scorpio energy overall, but especially in the moon, is like this energy is psychic. But it's like when you're psychic, if you're in fear, you might be going into like the darker aspects of life and kind of bringing those things through. You know what I mean? Like almost making them happen. So like a Scorpio moon person, when they're unhealed and let's say they're like paranoid about something, just like a random example, like let's say it's like school and like this person's like paranoid about failing a test and failing an exam, well, they'll probably bring it through, right? Because they're focusing on it so much. So Scorpio energy has to really focus on healing and going through those like transformational phases that Scorpio goes through, right? So eventually when you go into the higher versions of Scorpio, you'll be able to, first of all, realize that you're psychic, intuitive, you're a medium, right? You're all these things, and you're gonna have to kind of figure out, again, how to ground that information, how to work with the energy. But yeah, otherwise, and also what I'm gonna say for Scorpionic energy too, it's like when it's unhealed, it can be very vengeful. And it can be very like manipulative in the sense where it's like, it can like be calculative and it can like calculate this whole plan and it can like calculate this like whole revenge plan, like almost like narcissistic, right? But all the signs can be narcissistic in their own way, right? But Scorpio, it's like when it's unhealed, it can really go through this whole like, how can I get back at that person so that nobody could ever like figure out that I did that thing? Like it can be very dark, like energetically. You said, yes, you love everything about healing and you do overthink. Well, there you go. That's confirmation. Letitia says you have Pisces, midheaven, 10th house, and Saturn in Leo in the 2nd house. What are my thoughts? You have Pisces, midheaven, and you have Saturn in Leo. It's in your 2nd house. So you're here to master actually money in this lifetime and finances and abundance. What's interesting about, okay, this is something that I was thinking about recently. People who are more watery and more psychic and intuitive, they're actually meant to master the physical plane in this lifetime. That's something that I was thinking about because they'll spend so much time escaping, but you're actually meant to figure out how to ground all of that information into this physical reality. Now, when you have the midheaven in Pisces or the 10th house in Pisces or even Neptune in the 10th house, what might happen is like in these situations, you might blur the area of career and work and your public image. Okay, so that's the struggle. You want to do everything, right? You might be like, I want to be an artist and I want to be a filmmaker and I want to be a metaphysician and I want to be a singer. Like you want to do it all, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't do it all. It just means you kind of have to focus on one thing at a time. Because it's like with this energy, if you try to do everything, nothing is going to get done. That's the struggle. So Pisces 10th house, what happens for them is I feel like a lot of their earlier life is them kind of trying all these things, figuring out like what is it that they want to do, you know, clearing like all of the blurry energy off of what it is that they want to do. And usually because it's the 10th house, right? Usually in that 2nd half of life, you might come into more of that maturity of your work and your career. You might try a lot of things too when you're younger. You know, you might be a dance instructor and then you might be interested in acting or you might be interested in tarot, like these types of things, right? So the thing is, this is my opinion on Piscean, Neptunian 12th house energy, all of the psychic energy, right? It's like the visualization is really strong, but the energy struggles to streamline and focus, right? So that's when you want to bounce off of the oppositional energy, okay? So that's the whole thing here, and like the name of the game with the signs and their opposition. To master the sign, sometimes if you're struggling with it, you want to go into the oppositional energy and see how can the opposition help you, okay? So for Pisces, right, the opposition is Virgo, okay? So Virgo can help Pisces basically create a structure, okay? A structure for yourself, a schedule, an itinerary, a goal, whatever it is, okay? That's how you want to learn to work with the energies. And then vice versa, right? Like let's say you want to look at how Pisces can help Virgo. Well, Pisces can help Virgo maybe dream a little bit more or come out of their schedule, maybe have a little bit more flexibility, go more into like the creative zone, right? So it's like what happens with these people, like let's say when you have Pisces in the 10th house, it's like you have so much creative ability because of that third eye chakra, right? But it's like you don't know how to channel the energy, you don't know how to ground it, you don't know maybe how to create, you know, like that structure for yourself. Like let's say you want to maybe start your own business and do your own thing. Well, you need a lot of discipline for that and you need a lot of structure for that. So it's like spending your entire day maybe unstructured, you're going to just go off into the crown is really what that is. Into the crown and dream and daydream and just like be in your crown the whole day instead of grounding, right? So that's the thing. That's how you want to play with the energies, okay? Is really what that is. I think everyone can master their natal chart. Sometimes I see natal charts as a potential as well. So in Saturn and Leo, so Saturn and Leo is going to be the overall generation, okay? So a lot of people in the subset of your generation are going to have Saturn and Leo, okay? So this generation probably had a lot of narcissistic fathers and then maybe had struggles with, let's say, authority later on in terms of like their managers maybe being narcissistic or trying to kind of like restrict their creativity because Saturn is the area that gets restricted for you. So Saturn in Leo, that subset of your generation is restricted when it comes to your creativity, the expression, right? To be big, to be seen, to be yourself, to be funny, right? To like act, maybe like whatever it is, right? That's all restricted by, first of all, the father. If it's not the father, it's going to be the dominant masculine role in your life. If it's not that, then it's your teachers, whoever was that masculine role, that is the authorities, that is your boss, your managers, like all these people, right? That's what Saturn is all about. So that's your subset of the generation. You guys are clearing through that karma. Now you have it in the 2nd house. So basically you're mastering money. What happens with Saturn in the 2nd house, people, one of two things. Either they incarnate into money already, like part of the karma is to maybe already have money, or what might happen is they might incarnate into no money at all and they're here to master money. Okay, so it kind of depends on the rest of your natal chart to see what's actually going on. You said you want to do it all. Yeah, and you absolutely can, right? You absolutely can. But it's like if you want to do everything at the same time, then nothing gets done, right? So the suggestion is like, focus on the one thing, do it, finish it. You can still have that going, right? And then do the next thing, you know, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing. Pisces sometimes gets overwhelmed, and they also get overwhelmed energetically too. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said he wasn't controlling, paranoid. It's just he was delusional and he thought you were dating when you weren't. Oh my gosh, are you saying he thought you guys were dating when you weren't? Okay, let me know. Confirm in the messages below if you're still in the room. Okay, Astrofusion says you have Jupiter, Mars, Moon in the 12th house, Taurus, and Pluto. Hold on. So you have Jupiter, Mars, Moon in the 12th house, Taurus, and Pluto is in your 6th house in Scorpio. Oh, okay, so you have Jupiter, Mars, and Moon in Taurus in the 12th house. Oh wow, that's a lot of 12th house energy. And then you have Pluto in your 6th house and it's in Scorpio. Okay, so Pluto's a generation, so you're clearing karma with the millennials. Good luck. I'm just joking. You got a lot from life, right? But they have heavy karma to clear that generation, right? They're clearing a lot of generational things. Then all that 12th house energy, Moon in the 12th, you're psychic. Mars in the 12th. Mars in the 12th wants to live like a movie. Jupiter in the 12th, you can make money through these types of things like astrology and metaphysics and the psychic world. You might be interested in writing also. You could be interested in like poetry even. The thing is, with 12th house energy, it's like a lot of things for 12th house people are already mastered, okay, in a past life. So you guys have to figure out how to basically anchor them in this lifetime. Okay, I am back. And then you have Pluto in the 6th house. So that's the area that you were clearing and healing through in this lifetime. So you're clearing and healing through health, healing, and being of service. Okay, it is interesting. Pluto is opposing all that energy for you. So Pluto opposing your moon. You might have power struggles when it comes to women, people who are more so in the feminine energy, these types of things. Okay, with moon and Pluto, there could be manipulation in these types of dynamics, or just like covert manipulation or emotional manipulation. These types of things, okay, could definitely take place. Let's see what else you guys think in here. You said he was too pushy and intense too quickly and you weren't dating. Yeah, that's the thing. Scorpio is intense, right? So it's like these people really have to figure out how to hone their energy, and nobody can honestly help them unless themselves, right? So it is what it is. You said you will figure it out. Oh, I was saying, the last thing that I was saying for you was that moon opposing Pluto is going to be power struggles when it comes to women or people who are in the feminine energy, okay? So you might notice this in your friendships. You might be possessive over your friendships, or you might attract possessive people into your life. Or what might happen is it could be covert emotional manipulation, covert emotional abuse. These things could happen in like feminine dynamics, okay? Because it's moon and Pluto. And a lot of the time it starts with the mother. So the mother could have been like this, okay, controlling or like emotionally absent or like emotionally unavailable or like covert emotionally manipulative. Like that's something that could take place. And then later on it perpetuates throughout your life, okay? Until obviously you become aware of it. Let's see what else you guys are saying in here. North Node, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto, Juno, all in the 4th house of Scorpio. Oh my gosh. And you said, what is your soul purpose and your potential? I feel like a lot of your soul purpose is to clear and transmute a lot of darker energy. Maybe that has taken place in your life, but also in your family line. I'm curious to know if there's been a lot of death in your family, like not in your family, but like around you or like these types of things. Cause I kind of feel like maybe you're here to transmute that energy, or maybe you've been exposed to a lot of it. If it's not exact death, maybe it's just like transformation of the self. Yes, I'm so glad that that resonated. But that's really what that is. And then on top of that, this in the 4th house. So you're clearing a lot of things to do with the home in this lifetime, okay? So it could be through the mother. There's probably a lot of karma with the mother also, with the 4th house in there. You said no, that it could just be a metaphor in terms of like you going through a lot of change, catharsis, maybe going through a lot of like turmoil. There could have been a lot of like emotional changes as well. So you're kind of here to basically transmute energy. Scorpionic people, the thing is, all Scorpio people are here to basically learn how to be alchemists and how to work with energy overall. That's the thing for Scorpios, okay? So they're here to learn to transmute energy, lower emotions, lower experiences, all of the shadowy, like dark, like subconscious emotions that are in the collective overall. And then maybe they've internalized it as their own. So it could be like paranoia. It could be things like what we were talking about earlier, like being controlling or manipulative or possessive. Again, you could also attract people like this into your life as well. That could also happen with the Scorpionic energy as well, especially because you have Venus in Scorpio. What's interesting for Venus in Scorpio is like you could be possessive when it comes to relationships and your friendships and like all interpersonal dynamics, but you could also attract people who are like possessive of you or like obsessive like over you. Like that's something that can happen for Venus and Scorpio as well, okay? then all of this energy is in your 4th house, okay? So it's all opposing your 10th house. So what does this mean, okay? It's affecting your career. It's affecting your public image, right? So what I say for people who have like this whole 4th house, 10th house axis going on, it's like if your career isn't going in the way that you want it to go, or your public image, or again, maybe the way you make money, like whatever it is, because it is the 10th house, right? It's all about climbing to higher heights. You want to look to see what's going on in the 4th house. So for you, it's like Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto, like that's all in the 4th house. Pluto in the 4th house could have been like a very turbulent upbringing. There could have been a lot of change. Maybe you moved around a lot. Like there could have been a lot of chaos even. So the thing is, what's interesting is like you have North Node in the 4th house. Now, what's interesting for this axis is your 10th house or your South Node is in the 10th house. So in a past life, you could have been a very public person, right? And you could carry this energy within you right now where it's like you want to be public, but 4th house North Node is more so behind the scenes. So it's like you're helping the public, but like behind the scenes, right? So that's something that can take place. What else are you guys saying in here? Welcome to all people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions. I'm just going in order. Letitia says, you also have Neptune and Sagittarius in the 6th house. What do I think? So interesting. I had someone in here earlier with Neptune in the 6th house as well. Neptune and Sagittarius, this is a subset of the generation. So when we look at the generational planets, okay, they start from Sagittarius, or they start from Saturn onwards, okay, and then it gets bigger and bigger. So Pluto is the overall generation, okay, so that's the generation you come through to clear a specific type of karma with them, okay. The Neptune, right? Neptune is something that generation doesn't see clearly the sign in here, okay? The house is going to affect you more, but the sign is going to be the generation. So it's like everybody in the generation comes through to clear some sort of karma, right? When it comes to something that they're not seeing clearly. So for Neptune and Sag generation, basically, these people don't see the area clearly of their freedom, okay? Or like maybe wanting to be free. A lot of them I find are like freedom fighters, like what is freedom to them? They might want to travel. They might not see like religion clearly, or they might have like different beliefs when it comes to religion, for example. It could be like maybe a lot of these people like broke through karma within the families where it's like maybe the families had religious upbringings. They were the ones that were kind of like more freedom thinking or like more about like spirituality and philosophy. So that's the thing. You don't see that area clearly, and then the generation comes through to clear amongst each other and then for the collective as a whole. That's kind of how everything works, right? You have it in the 6th house. So Neptune in your natal chart is the area that you're escaping through. It's the area that you could also like anchor and manifest through. It's the area that you might dream about and you might naturally channel in that area. And it's interesting because for the other individual, what I was saying to them is like the 6th house is the health, healing, and being of service house, right? So when you have Neptune in the 6th house, a few things here, okay? So you might dream about healing and healing modalities and how can you help people and be of service. And that can be on a range, right? It could be like maybe you want to work in an animal shelter, or maybe you want to work in a women's shelter, or maybe you want to work in a homeless shelter, like whatever. Like it could be like this, or a soup kitchen, right? Like you dream about it. Like, oh my gosh, like I could help people in this way and be of service in this way. So that could be one way that it manifests, right? Or it could be like completely different. It depends on the rest of your natal chart, right? You might anchor through some form of new healing modality because you think about it so much. You're like, oh my gosh, right? You're in the crown. Like this is the area that you're in the crown through, right? For everybody in their natal chart, that's what Neptune is all about. But also having Neptune in the 6th house, and if the other individual is still in the room, this is also going to resonate with you as well. What might happen is you don't see the area of your routine clearly, right? You might struggle to maybe have a routine. And it's interesting because I know you said something about having, I think you mentioned that you had your midheaven and the sign of Pisces. So this is kind of where that energy comes through. Again, the unstructured energy, struggling maybe with structure. You know, Neptune in the 6th house, people could struggle to maybe have a structured job, for example, because it doesn't allow them to expand, right? That Piscean, Neptunian energy wants to expand and it wants to be free in that way. It wants to go with the flow. It wants to wake up today and do this, and tomorrow it wants to do that thing. It's all about the feeling, right? So when you have Neptune in the 6th house, you don't see this area necessarily clearly, right? Your area of routine and like the day-to-day. Sometimes Neptune in the 6th house people, what could happen to them as well is like they can go so far off into the crown, right? Like completely forget like what day of the week it is, you know, whatever their tasks were, and like let's say forget to clean, right? Like it could be something like this. You know, so you might have to like maybe put reminders in your phone, you know, for like things that are maybe like the day-to-day tasks that you might forget because you're in the crown. So it could be things like this as well. You're welcome. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. Saturn 5th house, Pisces. You're in a Saturn return right now. Okay, so Saturn in the 5th house, people, this is an interesting placement, okay? Because the area that gets restricted for you guys, so Saturn restricts, okay, when you're younger. A lot of the time it's the father. If it's not the father, it's going to be the dominant masculine role in your life. And if it's not that, then it's your teachers. When you're a kid, it's your managers as you age. So this area is constantly getting restricted for you. As you age, you kind of master that. So you can kind of look at Saturn as like you struggle in that area when you're younger, because it's like this area requires maturity, right? So it's like when you become more mature, Saturn starts to reward you because you're mastering that particular area in your life, and it's karma, right? It's karmic. So Saturn in the 5th house. What does this mean, right? The area of creativity is restricted for you. The expression of the self, you know, being seen could have been restricted for you. Maybe you desperately want to be seen, but it's restricted or was for you. Let's say when you were a kid, maybe you wanted to be in a choir or whatever, right? Like everybody else was in the choir, and maybe you wanted to be in it too, and maybe everybody got in, but you didn't get in because the teacher or whoever, like the person that everyone auditions for, was like, no, right? So this is the restriction, right? But it's like at the same time, it's like, no, I know I can do this, and I really want to do this. How come other people are getting it and I'm not, right? That's kind of Saturn in the 5th house. Saturn in the 5th house can have delays in children. That's something that can happen because it deals with the inner child, right? So when you have your Saturn return in the 5th house, a few things can take place. During this time, you might go through healing, right? When it comes to your inner child, your creativity, you're going to be a little bit more mature when it comes to your creativity. Maybe you're going to bring through a little bit more structure about how you're going to go about expressing yourself creatively. Also, Saturn return in the 5th house. And this is, by the way, for anybody going through a Saturn in the 5th house transit. During this time, you might meet a more mature lover. Okay, that's something that can take place. Someone who is a little bit more mature. Now, keep in mind, age does not equal maturity. Okay, it's just, you know, the way that the person is in terms of their perception on things. Okay, so this could be something that takes place for Saturn in the 5th house transit overall, but also Saturn return. What else? This is the main thing. I see Saturn return as like Saturn is coming through to kind of shake you up, you know, develop that strong core, solar plexus, and your identity to put you on your path, right? So Saturn in the 5th house could very much want to have a path of like creativity, right? So during this time, you could go through a lot of destruction, maybe of belief systems when it comes to your creativity, for example, right? That's something that can take place to be able to express yourself, okay? Another thing that can take place is you could have a child during this time as well, right? So if you don't want a child, you know, make sure to keep that in mind, right? Because Saturn in the 5th house again, right? Saturn sometimes brings through responsibility through a child as well. For everybody though, I've noticed sometimes around their Saturn returns, so it kind of depends on the entire natal chart, but those are some things that can take place. And keep in mind also another thing, like when I think about children and people having like children, these types of things, like sometimes a child comes through so you once again can heal your own inner child, right? So that's kind of what everything is revolving, right? When we think about it, everything is about bringing us back to ourselves and healing the inner child within. So it could either be literal or it could be a metaphor. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You're welcome. Hey, Patricia, I'll get to you in just a second. Marley says you have Sun, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Neptune in the 12th house. Most move to the 1st house in Vedic, and it angers you. Why does it anger you? What about Pluto conjunct IC and Libra, 3rd house transit about? Pluto conjunct IC and Libra, you could have had a very tumultuous upbringing. There could have been a lot of change, a lot of transformation. Having the IC and Libra, something that I've noticed for these people is like, because the IC is the 4th house, right? Something that I've noticed for these people is like sometimes, because the 4th house can deal with the mother, if it's not the mother, it's going to be the dominant feminine role in your life. And this is also going to resonate for Libra moon people as well, probably. What I've noticed for these people is like sometimes the mother can be like shadow femme in the sense where it's like she can be very passive, or like, let's say like double faced. Like let's say in a situation like you as a child, you really wanted her to like defend you, okay, for example, right? And it's like she might not defend you because she might care more about what other people think. Let's say in that situation, right? Or something of this sort. Like I always pick up on that energy for like either Libra moon, where it's like the mother could have been very much either like about appearances, how everything looks from the outside, choosing sides, or like being double-faced even is something that can take place. So, and then you have Pluto going through here. So it's like, you know, you're transforming through this entire area. You're transforming through the home when you have Pluto in the 4th house. You're going through a lot of changes, a lot of transformations, and then it's throughout your entire life, and it's also with the mother, and then in turn is going to be the feminine, okay? So it depends on your chart. It could have been the grandma or the dominant feminine role in your life, right? But there's this energy where it's like sometimes it kind of feels like this person could have like picked sides, right? And sometimes maybe you wanted them to pick your side, right? And this could be something that you're carrying within. Just as an example, let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said it angers you because it changed your outlook on your journey. That's the thing. So it's like, this is what I mean by like Vedic and whole signs and Western and everything. You guys really have to look to see which one resonates with you most, right? So it's like, if the other one doesn't resonate with you, then don't follow that natal chart. You know what I mean? But again, only a Vedic person can probably confirm this, but I've noticed, like, when I looked at my Vedic chart originally, way back when, the houses were also shifted up one, just like for you. But recently when I looked at it, it was in the Placidus Vedic system. So I'm just kind of like, does this exist? Like, do they have Placidus in whole sign also? Because that's what it seems like to me. Oh, you said you don't know? Okay, for people who are unsure, like, which system to look toward in terms of their natal charts, one way you guys can tell is look at your ascendant, then your descendant, then you want to look at your 4th house and your 10th house, your midheaven and your midheaven and your IC, okay? This axis is going to give you a really good picture about who you are as a person, okay? And then you also want to look at transits, okay? And then you'll know, right, which one of them resonates more with you, because if the houses are shifted up one, it's a completely different story, right? Because it's like, if in Western, you're a 12th house person and it's all 12th house and you really deeply resonate with like being psychic and intuitive, then that one resonates with you more, right? If you're then a 1st house person, that's a completely different picture, right? Because if you're a 1st house person, you're not dealing with the overactive crown. You know what I mean? And like the crowniness and the dreaming and like the fantasizing, you're not dealing with any of that. You're a go-getter. You could be more impulsive. You could be more of a leader, right? So it's like a very different energy. So you really have to figure out like which one resonates with you more. Hold on, you guys. I'm just going to turn my light on. So that's the one that resonates with you more. Let's see what else are you guys saying here. Okay. Patricia said, you're a 10th house sun and artist. You can't bring yourself to share your art with the world. Any advice? Yes, look at your 4th house and see what's going on in your 4th house. Can you tell me what is in your 4th house IC and what do you have in your 10th house IC? Can you let me know? And then if you also know, can you let me know what do you have in your 9th house as well, if you're still in the room? So you said your 10th house and an artist, and then you can't bring yourself to share your art with the world. That makes sense because you have Pluto going through the 4th. So there's probably something unresolved when it comes to the mother, the home. Having Scorpio in the 4th gives you the undertone of having a Scorpio moon. That's where your artistic ability comes from. But at the same time, Scorpio can struggle to, let's say, share, right? Like that could be a struggle as well. They could struggle to be vulnerable, right? Scorpio in the 4th house. It gives you that undertone energy of having a Scorpio moon. I am curious to know what your rising is as well. But overall, like that's the vibe, right? So my suggestion for people is always like, if you're a 10th house person and there's something that you want to put out there into the world and it's not going in the direction you want it to go and you want to see what's going on in the 4th house and to see what was happening in the home and what's happening with the mother. You said Leo rising. Okay, I was wondering if you were a Leo rising. So the Leo rising is going to like have this desperate need, right? To share, right? To be seen, right? To be out there, right? But then it's interesting because at the same time, they have the 4th house in the sign of Scorpio. So it's interesting because it's like, sometimes the Scorpio 4th house can kind of hide behind things. That's why, like, let's say Leo risings are going to be very good at like acting, for example, because it's like they get to express the emotional world through like a character. Do you know what I mean? So like that's where like the artistic ability comes from. It's like your outlet in a way. But sometimes, especially because you have 4th house in your Pluto's in there as well, it's going to be like intense, like karma surrounding the home. There's a lot of 4th house Pluto in the house today. That's so interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of karma when it comes to the home, clearing the home and like the mother and the feminine line and the feminine energy. So it's like, as much as, again, the Leo rising wants to be seen, the Scorpio moon wants to be hidden. So you might have to break through that, right? To actually put it out there and be okay with actually sharing the vulnerability with the world. That's the whole thing here. Because if you guys look at, so here's the thing with Leo rising, okay? If you guys are on the Leo rising axis of Leo rising, your Aquarius descendant, right? And then your Scorpio is in the 4th house, and then your midheaven is in the 10th house. Your midheaven is in the sign of Taurus. On this axis, right, if you guys have it this way, as a Leo rising, right, you have this drive to get money and to get wealth and to build. So that's the 10th house for you, right? But it's like, to get to the 10th house, you have to look at everything that's preceding the 10th house, right? I asked you for your 9th house. You said it's in Aries. So you're learning from Aries like people, right? So Aries types of people are like go-getters. Sometimes Aries types of people like jump into things before they're ready. Okay, that's Aries energy. So that's the whole thing here, right? With the Aries in the 9th house. And it's like you have to learn from the 9th house people to activate the midheaven. Okay, so sometimes just putting it out there, you know, and just being okay with like having it out there, just starting, right? Because Aries is very good at starting. So there's that. And then for Leo rising, you attract Aquarius types of people as well. So there could be like even karma to clear with that. So it's like, that's the whole thing. It's like you kind of have to go through all of these signs to eventually get to the 10th house, right? But the main thing I would say is the karma with the mother. Maybe there's upbringing when it comes to the mother. Maybe there is like codependency or like remnants of it, or like maybe caring about the mother or what she might say. I would have to look at your entire natal chart to get like a better view, but that's the overall idea, right? There could be like emotional manipulation or just like scared of like being vulnerable, right? So you said you aren't even speaking. Yeah, so it's like karmic, right? So it's like, you know, sometimes energetically these things could be holding us back, right? So it's just like figuring out ways to heal and clear and like forgive, which is the hardest thing, right? Because it's like it could be weighing you down, you know? So sometimes you can energetically forgive people, right? Writing it down, healing and clearing in this way. So those are some things that you could do, but I think that's probably the main thing that could be holding you back from that 10th house life. It's that 4th house, to see what's going on in the 4th house, because it's like the 4th house are our foundations in life, right? So it's like, you know, if the house of cards, right, is built on like not a strong foundation, or there's something here in terms of like belief systems, like you could be like 99% on board to do something, but then you could have that one like percent of doubt in your mind for whatever reason. It could just be the internal voice that you could have even learned. It could even be learned behavior, right? And it's like that 1% is pulling you back, right? So it's a matter of mastering that and pushing through. And honestly, on this plane, everything is about like trying to push constantly through to like get to like the higher goal and the higher purpose. Marley says, thoughts on Gemini 4th house with Saturn, Lilith in the 5th house. You have Gemini 4th house and then you have Saturn. So Gemini 4th house, wherever you guys have 4th house, so your IC, your 4th house gives you the undertone of having that moon sign, okay? So you said you feel like Aries energy, just go for it. Yeah, that's the thing. You have to learn from the 9th house to activate the midheaven. Sometimes you have to just go for it. That's what Aries is very good at teaching us, because it's like Aries can sometimes be overconfident. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like, you're like, where do they even get this confidence from? You know? So that could be a positive thing or it could be a negative thing, but at least like, that's what Aries people teach the rest of us, right? To just go after things. Just do it. Just start. Right? Who cares? You know, honestly, who cares at the end of the day? Like, that's the way that I see things, is like, who literally cares at the end of the day? Like, nobody cares. You know, everyone's first of all consumed in their own life and these types of things, right? So that's all I have to say about that. Let's see, thoughts on Gemini 4th house. Okay, so it gives you the undertone of having a Gemini moon. So what's interesting here is like, when it comes to your emotions, you could over intellectualize your emotions, right? So it's like Gemini is an air sign. 4th house, which is that moon energy, is the emotional world. So, you know, sometimes for people who over intellectualize, like they think about it, they can be like, yeah, I'm feeling this way, but they might not feel the emotion. So that could be something that takes place, okay? So for example, if your 4th house is in Gemini, your 10th house would be in Sagittarius, right? So it's interesting because it's like the 10th house being in Sag, it's like, you know, they kind of want to be seen as like almost gurus or like motivational speakers or like teachers of some sort, you know what I mean? But it's like, again, you know, if that's not, you know, panning out, you have to look at the 4th house. So it's like there could be an aspect that's not emotionally connected to what it is that you do, right? So that's kind of how we have to look at it, okay? And then 5th house Saturn, and then you have Lilith in there as well. So everything that I said to the other individual about the 5th house energy, okay, is probably going to resonate with you, Saturn in the 5th, okay? You're basically here to master the inner child and creativity in one way, shape, or form, okay? Saturn in the 5th house people might have children later on in life. It's a range I've noticed with them. Sometimes they can have a child early on and then not have a child for a while and then have one later. Sometimes they could have a child around their Saturn return. Sometimes they can have children not at all. That's something that can happen for Saturn in the 5th house people, right? They could really be just like focusing on their own inner child the entire time. Now you have Lilith in here. So it's like Lilith and Saturn, it's like, it kind of seems like there's a lot of shadows here that you are clearing in this lifetime when it comes to your own inner child and your creativity. You might want to be out there, right? And be seen, but at the same time, you might struggle to be seen, right? Because it's like, you know, there could be ego, or there could be a fear of rejection, or there could be like sometimes wanting to be at the top right away. That's the struggle. So What I will say for 5th house people, and maybe this is going to resonate even just like for Leo placements overall, it's like for them, it's like they want to be at the top right away, right? So it's like for a Leo person, they're going to look at a person, right? And they're going to be like, oh, like I want to do, let's say that job. Let's say it's like an acting job, right? Like Leo people, right? Or 5th house people want to be not just the main character right away, but they want to be like the star right away, which is fine, right? You're still a star, but sometimes Leo energy doesn't see that it has to work its way to that thing. So it's like sometimes they have too much pride to be in those early stages, if that makes sense, you know? And it's like that could really hold them back, right? It could hold them back because it's like the time is going to pass anyways, right? So during that time where you could have been like starting and falling and these types of things, you could have already maybe gotten to that star position that you were seeking. And this is in all realms. It could be in teaching, it could be in entrepreneurship. That's kind of where you'll see Leo 5th house people occupying, right? You'll see them in these areas. So that's the whole thing here, okay? So sometimes, again, for Leo energy, they kind of have to, you know, let go of, again, the ego aspect of things where it's like, I have to be the best and number one right away, right? Or like the star right away. Or I don't want to take on that role because I want to be a manager, but I don't want to be at the front line. You know, I don't want to be just a retail worker. I want to be the manager right away. So that's something that they might have to work through. Let's see what else you guys saying here. Shay, how are you? You said Cancer, Venus, Mars, 3rd house, and then you said Aries, Mercury in the 12th house. Okay, Mercury in the 12th house is like a natural channel. I had someone in here asking me for psychic placements, so Mercury in the 12th house is one of them. Keep in mind, you guys, psychic energy, creative energy, healing energy, and there's another one in here. Psychic energy, creative energy, healing energy, and there's another one in here, but I can't remember which one it is that I always say, but there's 4 of them in here that are very closely, well, sexual energy, yeah, it's sexual energy, but the 12th house doesn't really deal with sexual energy, but regardless, anytime you're engaging in the creative world, you're engaging in the sexual energy. That's what a lot of people don't understand. People don't understand how to work with sexual energy, you know? And it's like, you know, the sexual energy, which is the sacral chakra, right, is one of the most wounded chakras on this earth plane. And it's like, it makes sense why it's wounded, because if people knew how to harness their energy, they could literally create whatever it is they wanted to create, right? But in here, the wounding is like codependency, addiction, you know, hypersexuality, repression of sexuality, like all these things are in the sacral chakra, right? So it's a struggle because it's like, if you were to able to hone the energy to you, you would become magnetic, you know? So that's kind of that, but that has nothing to do with your placements. That was just a little tangent that I went on. So Mercury in the 12th house, you're going to be psychic, right? So you're able to channel, right? You're able to switch. You know, when we're dealing with the psychic world, we're kind of just like shifting gears in the way that we think, you know? It's like a lot of religions were trying to teach this, but a lot of people don't understand that. And everything's kind of seen through like a shadow masculine, aka patriarchal lens. But it's like, you know, let's say like in Hinduism, for example, and you'll see this in yoga as well, they talk about something called the drishti, right? The gaze, you know, and sometimes they would use the example of like a flame, you know, you would stare at the flame and you keep focusing on the flame to the point where it's like, now it's out of focus, right? And the whole point of this is to get in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities. And the whole point of getting in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities is a few things, right? It's like, you can be creative then, you can kind of, you know, be equipped, right? With like that, you know, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. It's like the trust within the self is really what that is. So Mercury in the 12th house person is going to have all these gifts, right? You might be musically talented. You might be talented when it comes to writing, like poetry and like romance novels and like these types of things, okay? So that is Mercury in the 12th house. Then you have Cancer, Venus, and you have Mars in the 3rd house. So Cancer, Venus, what happens with these people is like sometimes they might struggle in their relationships because there's like an energetic wound when it comes to the mother and when it comes to like codependency and the abandonment wounds, okay? So Cancer, Venus people are always looking for a home and they're looking for people that feel like home, okay? But sometimes it's like, let's say someone feels like home, you might latch onto that person, become codependent, and like merge, right? And it's like, maybe this isn't the best case scenario. I mean, maybe it is, you know, but maybe it isn't at the same time. So that's Cancer, Venus, right? It's discernment at the end of the day. Then you have Mars in the 3rd house. This, you know, things that can motivate you could be writing and speaking. That could be very motivational for you. Although Mars in the 3rd house can sometimes go into like the debating energy, you know, where it's like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? I find personally Gemini energy and 3rd house energy to be more indecisive than a Libra. And I find Aries energy sometimes to be more indecisive than a Libra. That's probably like an unpopular opinion, but that's just something that I've observed with people who have this type of energy within them. So you can find yourself in this inner conflict, you know, it's like, should I go after that thing? Should I not? It's like, you kind of try to do it, you don't do it. You try to do it, you don't do it. And it's like, boom, nothing gets done, right? So, you know, for people even who are trying to learn their intuition, their discernment, you know, which way should they go, what should they do, or if you're ever kind of in that debate, what should I do, what shouldn't I do, you always want to go with the first thought, okay? So learn to train yourselves to kind of figure out what is the first thought about something, what is the first instinct, right? So like, let's say it's in a situation where it's like, it's a job, right? Let's say the first thought is like, oh my gosh, like I really want that job, but boom, you know, maybe you finally get it, you get the job, you went through the interview process, these types of things, and then you get into that indecision energy. Should I do it? Should I take it? Should I not take it? Should I take it? Should I not take it? But initially you wanted to, right? So that's kind of how you guys can learn to start trusting. And the more that you trust the initial thought, the more that you develop the trust in the self is really what that is. So for people who are indecisive, you're always debating between heart versus ego. That's a debate is really what that is, okay? The heart wants one thing, the soul wants one thing, and the heart and the intuition is all connected, right? Because to be in tune with your intuition, right, with your psychic gifts and abilities is to be in the heart space and in the heart resonance. Anything that follows after is your ego, either trying to convince you otherwise. It could be fear, it could be societal programming, it could be society's opinions, your friends' opinions, your parents' opinions, your family's opinions, all these types of things, right? So that's a struggle. And that's why sometimes these people might find themselves in situations where later on they're like, oh, I should have done it that way, or I should have done it this way, right? So that's something that can happen. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. No way. Well, there you go. Confirmation. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that resonated. Neptune and Aquarius in the 12th house. Okay, Neptune and Aquarius is a subset of the generation, okay? So this subset of the generation is here basically to clear karma when it comes to not seeing the Aquarius in energy clearly. So what does this mean? They can spend a lot of time escaping. I can help the world in this way. I can heal the world in this way. I could do this. I could do that. You know, like you're thinking about it all the time, but you're not acting on it, right? So it's about grounding, right? How can I ground it into this physical reality? How can I, you know, actually help the world, right? Because the Aquarian energy is very expansive in that sense where it's like it wants to help, it wants to connect the collective, you know, these types of things, okay? That's something in Aquarius. You don't see it clearly, but you also at the same time have the ability to do that if you figure out how to ground it in this physical reality, okay? Neptune in the 12th house, a few things here, okay? Neptune in the 12th house, Nikola Tesla had Neptune in the 12th house, okay? These people are very connected to the other side, and they're very sensitive. They're very, very sensitive, like energetically sensitive, and like sensitive to like the subtle changes of energy. Because something to know, you guys, is like 12th house energy is able to pick up on the nuance, okay? That's the thing with 12th house energy. So it's like, when someone might be like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, or I don't know how this makes me feel, the 12th house person is going to be able to pinpoint the exact emotion, okay? Maybe some people don't even have words for it. 12th house person has words for it, okay? That's the thing with 12th house energy. So when you have Neptune in the 12th house, it's like, let's say you are, I always do this example, but let's say you're out, right? And it's like, everything is fine and dandy and it's all great. And all of a sudden the vibe changes, the vibe shifts. Something is off, boom, it's going to show on the Neptune in the 12th house person's face. No one's going to notice this. Only an observant psychic person would notice this. But that's the thing with Neptune in the 12th house. Super creative, super psychic, super tapped into the other side. Now keep in mind, when you guys are psychic and intuitive and you have these gifts, which everybody I think has, but just like 12th house people, 8th house people, just like watery people are more open psychically and intuitively. For these individuals, what tends to happen is like, because you're so open, you're always tapped in, right? You can't turn it off, you know, you're always tapped in. So it's a matter of like figuring out how to work with the energy is really what that is. You're welcome. What do you think of Virgo moon mom with 2 daughters, Cancer moon, and then you have 1 Leo moon daughter? That's really interesting. So something changed by the time the Leo moon daughter came through in terms of the upbringing. It could have been a lot of different things. I'm curious to know which one is the older one, which ones are the younger ones. Is the Leo moon daughter the younger one, the youngest one? You're welcome. Is the Cancer moon the younger ones? That's really interesting. And then you yourself are a Virgo moon mom. I'm curious to know if you're still in the room. Let me know who is in what order, because it's like, okay, 2 Cancer moon are the oldest and the youngest is a Leo moon. That's really interesting. So it's like something could have changed, right? Maybe when the Cancer moon children were around, maybe it could have gone 2 ways, right? Maybe there was a lot of emotional support for them, or maybe there wasn't, right? It kind of depends. Something changed in terms of the upbringing, right? Maybe you were working all the time, or maybe you were with them all the time. Like it could go on either one of those extremes, right? Because that's the thing with the energy. It can either go into the light version or the dark version. The Leo moon one is like something could have changed in terms of like, again, this child is more so about the creative expression. Maybe you put this kid into like some sort of like dance as a young child, or like film, or like acting as a young child. I've noticed like Leo moon people, what tends to happen with them is like sometimes they tend to be like the star in the family in one way, shape, or form. So it's like maybe they, again, are in dancing as a child, or in like acting as a child, or just like something like maybe in school, like these types of things. So that's all I can really say. I mean, I would have to like know way more about the charts and everything to see what's going on. But the main thing is like something changes in terms of the parenting and then the karma with that particular child, especially because you're the mother, right? The moon is the mother. So it's like something changed here in terms of the upbringing, the situation. You said definitely the character of the family. Yeah, like maybe the Leo moon child like came through to like be like the one who like breaks the tension, for example, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or like came through to be the one to like make everybody laugh. Like things like this. There's so many things to consider. Do you know what I mean? So like the other two could have been more like, again, sensitive, and like maybe they were more about like mom, and this one comes through and it's like, it's about me. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so many things to look at when we look at these types of things. Okay, you guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end this live and I'm going to start another one, and it's going to be called 12 House Support Group. Let's see how that one goes. So if you guys are 12 house people and you want to come in the support group, come into this next one and I'll be live for a little bit. But for those of you who are here right now, thanks so much for being here and your astrology questions. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called Barbara Talks, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your evening.